So, according to my calculations, I am going to need to make at least 360 different images. This is going to be tedious. I actually only ended up doing 213 different frames, but it was still the tedious process I was dreading. Still, I was compelled by forces unknown even to me to do this for some reason. Probably a mix of proving to myself that I can and reminding myself why I don't. But as you can see, I started with doing the background and then I made the different scenery elements, each one being on its own separate layer to make animating things a little easier. This whole thing was probably inspired by the fact that I saw someone playing the remaster of Epic Mickey a while back, so I decided to go with something vaguely in that vein, which is why I ended up starting with, a watery background and then some docks. To save a little bit of time, I just duplicated it and flipped the dock to the other side. Making the barrels was actually pretty simple. I just plopped down a square and then shaded in a roughly barrel texture on it, and then I used the warp tool to expand the center and then scaled it in a little bit to where it looked like a barrel. I also slightly erased the corners to give it a little bit of roundness. Then I cropped that layer to its content and duplicated it thrisely. Then over top of that, I made another water layer that was partially erased so you could see the underside of the barrels through the water. And then just hit it with a little bit of dodge burn to get your, light refractions. After I had my scene the way I liked it, I started to work on the little character I was going to actually animate going through it. I actually wasn't sure what he was going to be until the very end. Originally, it was just nebulous animal creature. Then it became Carlos the Kangaroo. And then somehow that turned into Frank the Fox. Not sure what happened there, but, The body, head, tail, in each of the hands and shoes are all their own separate layer. And then I made another layer over top all of that, which is going to be with the limbs. And then when I was animating it, I just moved the body segments where I wanted them, erase the limb layer, and then redraw the limbs and neck each time. Although you won't actually see me do anything within this footage, there is another layer called Splash, which is in front of everything else, which is where I animated all the water splash and ripples that you'll see here in a minute. And then there was one more layer over top everything else, which was used to block off what parts of the scene would actually be visible. And then after it was all set up, I would make very slight adjustments to where everything was positioned, redraw the limbs, do a splash if needed, move the frame block out over slightly if needed, export the thing as a PNG, do that 213 more times, and then I had to go back into each individual frame and then get rid of all the green block out areas. And then for the final few frames, rather than just moving the head, I redrew the head each frame, making it larger and more detailed. This took me a day and a half. Doing animation by hand is hard. Like and subscribe.